Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by Squarespace, an all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create a professional website, and now an online store. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to squarespace.com and use the offer code TWIST. And by Walker Corporate Law, a boutique law firm specializing in the representation of entrepreneurs. Visit them at walkercorporatelaw.com.
Hey everybody, what an amazing episode of This Week in Startups you're about to listen to. Jaron Gilinsky is on the program. He has created something called Storyhunter. He has aggregated 6,000 freelance journalists from around the world, and he allows them to go on assignment and then sell that product or have that product commissioned in some cases by the top publications in the world. It's distributed journalism, and he's got harrowing tales of bombs going off. And it's a really important episode that talks about Business Insider and Huffington Post and parasitic sites like BuzzFeed and those ones that rip off the hard journalism of some of the bigger sites, but now maybe they're becoming actually hard journalists themselves. It's a rambling, awesome episode about the future of journalism. Stick with us.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. Funny how it feeds my people. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah, money is the root of all evil. Funny how it feeds my people. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis, and boy am I in pain. Yes, I just absolutely damaged my back a couple of days ago, and this level of energy and enthusiasm is completely false. I'm in excruciating pain, yet like a true trooper, like a journalist who actually cares, I'm in here doing the show for y'all, for my loyal audience, because I will never, ever miss an episode. They will have to drag me from the foxhole, from the car accident. If I get hit by a bus, I will be here. They will tape this show in my goddamn hospital room before I miss an episode. And it is only apropos that during this episode, I interview somebody who does exactly that level of dangerous ish. Ish is the word that we use in the urban community for SHIT. This guy does dangerous ish like that all day long. And I love journalists. I love real journalists. In fact, those of you who read calacanis.com realize that I have distinguished the world between two types of content producers. Journalists, the people who tell the truth, they search for the truth. And mere content creators, the people who make ish up. The people who come up with lying headlines, screaming headlines, all in caps. You'll never believe the 17 things that kale can do to extend your life. These bastards, they call themselves journalists. They're page-mongering a-holes, and I hate them. And you know what? The real journalists in the world have to deal and compete on the same playing field with people who lie to get page views, who create slideshows, who steal. Garbage. All of you, garbage. I hate you all. This is This Week in Startups. We're a twice-weekly program. You can follow us at TWI Startups. My guest today is Jaron Gilinsky, and he runs something called Storyhunter. Now, Jaren, when you hear me go off on that rant about journalism, does any of that ring true to you?
I'm definitely less cynical, I think.
Well, you couldn't possibly be more cynical than that.
But yeah, it does. In a way, I don't break it down into such a binary two-category system, but I think that there are journalists out there in the field reporting, trying to bring back stories, original content on the ground. And then there are people that talk about things, like pundits. I'm not saying all pundits are bad, and certainly not all journalists on the ground are good, but I think both things are necessary. The reason we started Storyhunter is to empower those that are on the ground to actually continue doing what they're doing, because as you know, our industry was completely disrupted about 5 to 10 years ago, and I think we're still in that trough.
How was it disrupted? Explain to the audience who maybe isn't as inside baseball as you and I.
Yeah.
How this disruption happened and what impact it has had.
Well, I saw it firsthand. I was working as a freelance correspondent in Jerusalem. I was a freelancer working for the New York Times, for Time.com, and I was on hand.
It's one of those quiet little places in the world where not much goes down.
Yeah, it's one of the news capitals of the world, and
for sure.
I witnessed the closing of Times bureau in Jerusalem. In 2009, I got a call from the bureau chief who I was working with saying, "We're cutting content from Jerusalem and we're shutting down this bureau."
Time Inc. or New York Times?
Time.com.
Time.com.
Yeah. So Time.com is one of Time Inc.'s many properties.
Sure, of
so,
course.
To me, it was a wake-up call, and the writing was on the wall that basically the cost of news reporting is very high, and especially in far-flung places. And the money just wasn't coming in as it was before, mainly due to internet disruption. Eyeballs are going onto the websites as opposed to reading the newspapers and the magazines. Craigslist, of course, destroyed the classified business model that was keeping newspapers afloat, and broadcast was having their own struggles. So everything was beginning to just start moving online. The problem is that the business models hadn't yet caught up, and these companies still haven't figured out how to monetize content. So the first thing that got cut in many cases were these expensive foreign bureaus, and I witnessed that firsthand and was like, wait, this is crazy. Something better must come after this.
How much would a bureau like, say, Times or the New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, whatever, how many people would they have in a bureau, and what would the budget of one, without giving any inside information, or now that they don't have it, maybe you can, but what would those bureaus cost a publication?
I don't know the exact number, but I know that it must be very expensive. Especially
how many people?
The New York Times bureau, for example, had a reporter, a bureau chief, and then 2 supplementary reporters, a researcher, a couple translators, a couple fixers. And so you're looking at between 7 and 10 people all in, and
it's $100K each all in, maybe.
I imagine that some of them are also contractors, so
okay.
it varies. But I mean,
at least $1 million.
Yeah, and usually they're in the nicest parts of the cities,
have to be,
where they have to be secure and whatnot. So they're paying rent. They're paying. You're not paying a la carte for the actual content. So
right.
That's an inefficiency right there.
And they have fixers. What does a fixer do?
Fixers are
because I watch Homeland, but I only have my Homeland view of what a fixer is. Tell us what a fixer is in Jerusalem.
A fixer is the secret sauce behind foreign reporting. Journalist comes from the United States. They fly to Egypt or Israel and doesn't really have a clue as to what is actually going on right now in this place.
Right.
They certainly don't have phone numbers of people that they need to interview. They don't know their way around. The fixer does all of that. They take you, they set up the interviews for you. Often they just tell you what is the most important story right now. This is what you need to tell your viewers or readers in the United States. So often they have a lot of power in determining what are the stories that you and I read every day.
So they're sort of like journalists, but they're also translating and just giving you the lay of the land. Like, hey, the person you're talking to was elected, into this province for these reasons. These are their supporters. Just giving you the chessboard, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. And we call them on the platform either fixers or field producers, and you can look at them both ways. They're the ones that are in the field helping you do whatever it is you need to do to make your report or broadcast.
All right. But when we get back from the commercial break, which we're going to go to in a second, I want you to explain to me what Storyhunter does. But I also want to know. When a publication like the ones you've worked for spends on a story, they're probably spending low tens of thousands of dollars per story if you took the $1 million budget together, you think?
Probably if you're using staffers as opposed to freelancers.
Yeah, so let's say low tens of thousands. What is it like for those publications when a company like, let's say, Business Insider or BuzzFeed or Huffington Post jumps the firewall, the paywall at that publication, takes the $10,000 story, breaks it into 4 salacious pieces with headlines that you, the stringer, the journalist, the editor-in-chief would never put on them because they're not factually accurate, spreads the 4 of them on social media, spends another amount of money on social media that they didn't have to spend producing it, and they spend $25 per piece to produce the story, $100 for 4 pieces, and then they spend another $400, $500 total, only 5% of what you spend, and they beat you in terms of traffic. What is that like for you as the journalist in the publication? What's the internal dialogue that you've been privy to?
Honestly, not much. I was a freelancer for 10 years. So I actually, when I came to New York to meet my clients, I was in the New York Times building or time.com building for an hour. And they said, hey, great stuff. Keep pitching us. And I said, thanks. Any feedback? And I was out the door. So I don't know what those internal conversations were like. I imagine they must have been very frustrating.
It's got to be infuriating.
Yeah.
Because you saw it with your own work. How many times did you see your own work cribbed by other publications who then make 3 or 4 versions of the story? They take the best headline, they take your best quote, your best pull quote, your best subhead, your best caption, they make it a headline, and then somewhere at the bottom they say, oh yeah, a guy named Jordan wrote this, and they give it a tiny little link on the part of the page they know will send the least traffic. What's that like to you?
Yeah, I mean, it must suck. I think there's a parasitic relationship in media where there are the people that are doing a lot of the hard work, putting in the sweat, and then the other ones are just piggybacking off of them. So I imagine, that's just not fair. I think in any industry, if that were to happen, it would be an unfair kind of situation.
Now, you were a stringer for how many years?
About a decade.
All right. And in a decade, you came up with a better idea. And when we come back from commercial break, we're going to hear Jordan's better idea. Stick with us. Oh my God, Squarespace. I love Squarespace so much that if you go to launchfestival.com, you will see a website that looks like I spent 20 dimes on it. For those of you who don't play poker, that's 5 flags. If you don't know what 5 flags are, those are the $5,000 chips that you will get at the Aria or the Bellagio. If you want to look like you spent a cranberry, that's the $25,000 chip, on your website, you get Squarespace. And do you know how much they charge you? Drop the 3 zeros off the cranberry. It's dollars a month, $10 a month, $8 a month, $15 a month. The product is too cheap. I keep telling Anthony over there, will you please add a 0 or 2 to your product? I feel like I'm ripping you off. He's like, Jason, I don't need to. I have so many thousands, tens, hundreds of thousands of clients. I can just charge them each a modest price, which starts at only $8 a month, to have a beautiful design that's simple and powerful, and anybody can edit it. Oh, and you need support? Pick up the phone, because we care, and we'll walk you through it on the phone. And you know what? I don't have to have a developer. I don't need a $150,000 a year developer to make a website that looks like it's worth $250,000 anymore. You can have a website worth $250,000 for not $25,000, not $2,500, but for $8 a month. It's responsive. What that means is when you open up your phone, it looks as good as when you open up your desktop. Not all publishing systems will do that. And commerce. Yes, that's right. Commerce is built into Squarespace. The company, and I know this company from New York, I had a chance to invest in it. I didn't. I lost literally, I lost millions of dollars not investing in this company. So I want to kill myself. I'm such an idiot. I know. And you know what? When you're an angel investor and you don't invest in something, you know at that moment you're an idiot. That's my life. I missed investing in Squarespace. But you get to benefit. Go check out Dreaming with Jeff, which is Jeff Bridges' new project. He's a wacky dude, and he built something beautiful on Squarespace called Dreaming with Jeff. And it's pretty funny, actually. The dude, Jeff Bridges himself. No credit card is required for the trial. That's because they're so confident that you love it. And if you do love it, which you will, use our program code. The offer code is TWIST. This week in startups, twist, TWIST, and you get 10% off your first purchase. Not that you even need it because the thing is so damn affordable anyway. Squarespace, just build it beautiful, like we do. here at This Week in Startups and Launch Festival. The launchfestival.com website is so gorgeous. I'm so proud of it. And I can ask Nathan or Jackie or Jacob or Bryce or Brandon or anybody on the staff to change something on the website, and it's changed. And that's really what you want with your website. You want it to work on mobile phones, you want it to be beautiful, and you want to be able to make changes quick. I have all that because I am smart enough to use Squarespace, and you are smart enough to use Squarespace as well. Go ahead and stop what you're doing right now and say thank you at Squarespace for supporting at TWI Startup. Because independent media like this would not exist without the support of people like Squarespace who are visionary not only in their own product, but visionary in supporting independent media like podcasts. So thanks again, Squarespace. Thanks, Anthony. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hey, welcome back. I'm here with Jaron Gilinsky. I think I just called him Jordan, didn't I?
You said it right in the intro.
I did it?
Yeah,
I said it right in the intro?
In the intro, you said it right.
I apologize to everybody. I'm on back pain medication. Hi, my name is Robert Scoble, and welcome to Tech Coverage provided by Rackspace. No, I'm Jason Calacanis. I'm not Robert Scoble. But I am hopped up on some pain medication. So, I think. Okay, Jaron Gilinsky, who you can follow at Jaron Gilinsky on the Twitter, Jaron, obviously, and Gilinsky spelled Gilinsky, and you can follow at Storyhunter. You spent a decade doing foreign reporting, and in the video I'm about to hit play on, you almost died. Where is this video taking place? And let's play, and then you talk over. Give us a little sportscasting about what we're seeing.
I assume you're playing the one from Haifa. There, unfortunately, were a few incidents. This is northern Israel during the Second Lebanon War, and we basically walked into this bomb shelter. 10 seconds earlier, we were in the spot that the rocket, and you just heard the big noise. It fell literally where we were standing 10 seconds earlier. So you missed there was a walk to the shelter. But basically, we narrowly escaped a bad situation.
Are you nervous just watching that? You seem very tense all of a sudden.
Yeah, I think I am a bit nervous. It brings back memories. And
you might have PTSD from this.
I probably do.
When did that happen?
It happened in 2006.
I'm looking at the video. If you pull up this video, this happened a full 8 years ago. That's you, right?
Yeah, that is
With
me.
a little bit shorter hair.
Yeah.
You, may I say, you look like you're terrified.
Yeah, I was sweating at that point because we were still in the shelter then because we didn't know if there were going to be subsequent rocket attacks.
I mean, you can see the fear on your face.
Yeah.
Take me to that moment. What are you thinking? Look at your hands on your face.
Yeah, I'm certainly thinking that I'm thinking about my family. I'm thinking about my friends. I'm thinking about why I do this in the first place. Is it worth it?
Wow. It's a very real moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that the scariest moment of your life?
No, because it happened so fast. I was in, other situations where there was more anxiety, where I was waiting in a hotel room in Egypt.
Oh, really?
In the revolution, wondering if the police were going to come in and get me. So, the anxiety to me is scarier than these moments that happen very quickly. It was obviously a really scary moment, and these types of moments, led me to just feel like I was not being valued enough by the companies that I was working for.
Explain that for a second.
Well, freelancers are doing the hardest work in journalism. They're going to these places where dangerous things are happening, where there's war. We've seen what happened this year with a number of journalists getting killed by ISIS, and
let's face it, beheaded.
Yeah, beheaded.
They literally
murdered.
had their
in the most
cut off.
barbaric way. And it's I think a wake-up call, hopefully, to media companies that these freelancers should not be taken for granted. There should never be a freelancer sent into a conflict zone without insurance. And
you don't mean just insurance as in their family gets money when they have their heads cut off. You mean insurance as in people with guns to protect them.
No. They can have that if they need it. I'm talking about life insurance. I'm talking about repatriation of their body if they get killed. There have been cases where people's were working for certain media companies, which I won't name, got killed on the job, and the media companies wouldn't even pay to bring their body back for a funeral.
No.
Yeah.
Producer Jackie, look that up right now. That is appalling to me.
Yeah. And to me...
You're telling me a modern journalistic entity would not pay to bring their own storyteller home, their own journalist home?
Well, that's the reason is that the freelancer.
My God, that is just absolutely inconceivable.
Well, the freelancer has a very amorphous relationship with media companies. Sometimes they're working for you, sometimes they're working for somebody else. So it's easy to diffuse their responsibility and say, oh, well, this freelancer was about to pitch me a story. We weren't actually in the process of working together. And so one of the things Storyhunter does is we are able, through our software, to know the exact start date of a production and the exact end date. So we can actually insure that person for the duration of the production.
Right. Good segue.
There's no questions about what they're doing for you.
Okay, good segue.
Okay.
Let's pull up your computer. You show us
Sure.
Storyhunter.
Okay.
And I have to say, my God, there's journalists, and like some people consider me a journalist for doing this program. And previously, obviously, I was a journalist. I have to say, I feel like a journalist with a small j. I feel like you guys are the journalists with a capital J.
Well,
I mean, telling the story about how somebody built a website or an app is one thing. There's a whole different level. You have my respect, and certainly all the journalists out there who go tell the stories that actually put their lives in danger. I mean, these are the real journalists in my mind. But anyway, tell us about the platform you built.
Sure. So basically, this is the view from a publisher perspective. We have enterprise users, enterprise publishers. Some of the biggest media companies in the world are using our platform to source content from the world's largest vetted network of freelancers, which
Do me a favor, just hit view and then go full screen mode.
Okay.
Where is that?
Full screen.
There you go. Good. Boom.
Okay.
Now we hit the whole thing here. View presentation mode. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Same thing, view. You just go up to the top, it'll drop the view down. There you go. View and presentation mode. I want to make sure everybody sees all the goodness. Okay, perfect. All right, so we're looking at a map.
Yeah. So
I see red, I see yellow, I see blue. What's the difference in the colors?
Yeah, basically it's a heat map in a sense of where we have people on the ground right now. So it's all it's not exactly real time, but we know where they last logged in, and eventually we'll move to a more real time solution. So you can either
real-time solution being you have their phone, you have a GPS application, and you know precisely where they are.
Exactly.
So if they were to, God forbid, be kidnapped or picked up, you know the last moment.
Yep, absolutely. And we also know where they are for work. So, freelancers move around a bit. A company needs to know, who do you have in Cairo right now?
Got it.
And that's a big problem for media companies.
Got it.
Can
you say some of your clients?
Yeah, we work with Al Jazeera, we work with Fusion, we work with Discovery Digital, the New York Times, Bloomberg.
So a couple of up-and-coming publications.
Yeah, but we're also interested.
I should say the top publications.
Yeah, and that's a function of the quality of our network. We went and specifically targeted the top freelancers out there who I believe were just being ignored by the market.
Now, why would a freelancer sign up with Storyhunter?
The same reason, it's access to a marketplace. So I was frustrated in that I only had a few clients. Even though I was working for the Times, I was constantly trying to piecemeal my income. When there wasn't a war zone nearby or revolution, I had to find new clients, and I was unable to. Imagine if I could access the editors in London and Paris and Tokyo, and by the same token, they couldn't find me on the ground in Jerusalem. They were sending their people in from London and Tokyo. If they knew I was there, it would have been a lot more efficient. So I'll walk you through the platform.
Keep taking me. I'm signing up for it right now.
You can discover story hunters through the map tool, or you can discover open pitches. If you're interested in breaking news, the open pitches is a stream of ideas and breaking news stories from around the world in real time. So let's say you're looking for a journalist somewhere in the world. Where would you potentially, for your media company?
Give me I want to see I want the hottest zone, which I guess would be Iraq or somewhere ISIS related, I guess you could say.
So
also, Pakistan's a pretty hot zone where a journalist is in danger.
Well, we can try Pakistan. Let's see what comes up.
I assume Iran is not somewhere a journalist would like to actually put their name on the list.
So, no, we have people in Iran, and we have people in China, we have people in Cuba.
What about Iraq?
We have people in Iraq. We generally are discouraging certain places. So right now, there are places in Iraq that we will not commission a story just due to the danger level. It's not worth it to us. But I mean, in the United States, for example, there are places that are also not covered by bureaus we had this major news event in Ferguson a few months ago, and that's basically a dead zone for journalism. There's no bureaus there, so companies also used us to, instead of flying their people from LA or New York, they used our people that were on the ground in St. Louis and mobilized them to get to Ferguson faster. Wow. So it's a practical application anywhere in the world. And companies have problems finding people in London and Barcelona, believe it or not. Freelancers are moving. Your guy or your girl that you're used to working with isn't on the ground at that moment. What do you do? So the beauty of this platform is the question in newsrooms used to be, who do we have on the ground at any one time? Mm-hmm. Now the question is, what do we want to cover? And we give them the ability to cover anything anywhere in the world. And we give them a 24-hour guarantee also. So that when you create an assignment on the platform, we guarantee applicants within 24 hours. And we also then will, by the deadline, assuming it's a reasonable assignment. Now, you can't say, I want a story from Iraq and I'm paying $100. That's unreasonable. We're not going to give you an assignment that. But assuming you're paying something that's market rate, we're going to guarantee that you're going to get the applicants you need.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm doing the sign up here. Put my sign up for me.
So I created your account already. You don't have to. Yeah, I got you set up. This is your account. So I'll see.
As a publisher or as a.
So you are a publisher. You're you're Jason Calacanis. Did I say your name right?
Inside.com, yeah.
Representing Inside.com. I took your profile from Wikipedia. You have your interests here, and these are your assignments, which I just created randomly. And so actually, I put in the wrong location here, but I changed it to San Francisco. But basically, the idea is you have your assignments, and you see that post new assignment button.
Yep.
That's where the magic happens. You press that, you create your assignment, it goes onto the platform. You have certain filters. So you're basically, the first filter is, are you looking for ideas or are you looking for story hunters? So let's say story hunters. You click that, and then it takes you to basically what services do you need? Are you looking for video journalism? Are you looking for branded content? Are you looking for documentary filmmaking, field production, mobile live streaming?
On air.
All of these have been used
sound recording
and demanded and ordered on the platform by these media companies. And so you create your what you're looking for. We have a rating system which is informed by reviews after you use the Freelancer. You can say this was a great experience or not.
Yeah, or the video was bad, or the sound was not suboptimal.
Exactly. So
is it a 5-star? Is it a 10-star? How do you do it?
So it's
just color commentary.
1 through 5, and
perfect.
It's kind of like Uber. And the title, whatever you want this to scream out.
Yeah.
So what would you use a freelance network for potentially?
Well, let's say I wanted to report. I wanted to have firsthand video of the protests in Oakland.
Protests in Oakland. So do you want it to be live, or do you want it to be just a
I want
package?
it live. I want it live.
Okay, so we'll do mobile live streaming. We generally,
because I can take the live streaming and then I can cut it myself. Mm-hmm.
This is pretty easy, actually. We have people that come straight out of journalism school that are doing great live streaming, because basically you're just holding your iPhone, and we have third-party software that we tell them to use. They submit the content.
What do you use, Kick or something like that?
It varies by the publisher.
Ustream?
Yeah.
What's popular?
We used Kick last time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did Kick get bought by somebody? Kick?
I don't know. I'm not
Kick
sure.
Kick has done a really good job. Ustream. Okay, good.
So what's your title?
The title would be Oakland Protests, Close-Up of Police Behavior.
Okay. You got it.
Because you know what? That sells.
Yep. And then you'd give a description.
I'm a good editor. You picked the right client. I want a close-up of the police interacting with the protesters, and I want first-person video of those protesters.
Okay.
I want to put a GoPro on a protester, in addition to having the live video. Mm-hmm. So I get 2 angles.
You got it. It's always good to have a 2-camera shoot for editing purposes.
But I want to pay for one. You understand?
So what are you willing to pay?
I'm willing to pay, what would $50 an hour be? It's a 6-hour protest, $300.
$300. So we'll give a range. Let's go
300 to 800.
Let's go 250 to 500.
Okay, fine.
This is the demo platform.
I think 50 an hour is a pretty good rate. It's not that dangerous.
No, it's not.
Did I pick a reasonable rate?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And then you just submit it, and now it's in the platform, and you'll be getting bids as soon as we.
Sweet Jesus, that's genius. How many people do you have in there?
We have 6,000 journalists and
How
filmmakers.
long have you been doing this?
So we started off 2 years ago, and our first business was actually let's let's start off with content licensing. Let's actually make the stuff ourselves. And the reason we did that was that I got our first deal with Yahoo Latin America before we even had business cards. They said, we need 150 videos. We're going to give you $250,000. Go ahead and do it. So I just followed the demand. But we realized...
But you had the supply side, but not the demand side.
Yeah.
All right, when we get back from commercial break, which is an incredibly important commercial, by the way, I want everybody to really tune into that. I want you to tell me how this goes from 6,000 journalists to 60,000 when we get back on This Week in Startups. Yes, Scott Walker is a great friend of mine, and he runs the Walker Corporate Law Group, which is an amazing group of attorneys who left those big, huge firms to focus on one thing: founders and their startups, and making sure they're protected and that they're nurtured. Because one of the things that kills startups is huge legal bills, huge legal mistakes. You can't afford to pay huge fees to lawyers if you've got a little tiny angel invested company. You have to be conserving that cash. But in order to be a bigger company and raise those A rounds and raise those B rounds, you're going to need to have your ducks in a row. You need to have perfect documentation of your investments and your IP, et cetera. That's where Scott comes in. He gives flat rate pricing. Yes, fixed fees. He'll tell you, this will cost $2,000. This will cost $5,000. This will cost $500. This way, you know what you're going to wind up spending. And all their lawyers have decades of experience. You're not going to get any junior associates working on your account. And you can call my friend Scott Walker at 415-979-9998, 979-9998. Or you can email him, Scott at Walker Corporate Law, Scott at Walker Corporate Law, or you can visit walkercorporatelaw.com. He's a total mensch, and you can follow him on at Scott Ed Walker. You got to put the Ed in there, Scott Ed Walker. And he actually tweets a bunch, and he interacts with entrepreneurs, gives advice, and he quotes all kinds of interesting videos, and will point you to great content on Twitter. So I highly recommend following at Scott Ed Walker of the Walker Corporate Law Group. He's a great attorney, good friend, and he's been sponsoring this program for years. You couldn't do better than Scott Walker helping you with your legal issues for your startup. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode. Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis. Welcome back to a very serious and important episode of This Week in Startups, where we're talking about the real journalists, not the ones at Business Insider or Huffington Post or BuzzFeed who are doing listicles about kittens or stealing articles from The Economist and Wall Street Journal from behind their paywalls and taking credit for them and giving this tiny little link at the bottom. We're on to you. We're on to your games, Huffington Post, Business Insider, BuzzFeed. And by the way, I know you have some real journalists working there. And for the real journalists who work at those publications, have some goddamn class and give credit at the start of your stories, all right? I'm deep in this game. I know the tricks. When you put that link at the bottom, you know what that says? That says F you to the person who did the real work. If you're going to steal, put it in the first goddamn sentence. Seriously, what's wrong with you people? It's infuriating to me, Jaren.
Well, BuzzFeed is doing good reporting now. They're doing some...
They are doing good reporting, but do you find it absolutely abhorrent when they bury the source? If you're going to take somebody else's reporting that they paid for, where do you think the credit should go?
You're absolutely right.
Where?
To the reporter.
And where should it be in the placement of the article?
I think first and foremost, it should be at the top.
It should be in the top, exactly. These publications are such greedy bastards. And it's really shameful because you're making enough goddamn money, BuzzFeed, Business Insider, HuffPost. You're printing money, yet you bury the credit in the last sentence as if we, the other journalists out there, don't know what you're doing. It's just pathetic.
Well, hopefully they're going to make good money, and they're going to figure out digital distribution, and they're going to help keep journalism not only alive but thrive, and they're going to grow this pie. And that's something I really believe in.
You're a very positive person, Jaren, but let me tell you something. These are people who are rich already. They've taken down tens of millions of dollars investments. Their companies are worth $300, $500, $1 billion. If they don't get it by now, it's because they're being I don't want to curse on my own program. I'm trying to keep my iTunes rating, but you're being beeping effing beeps because you can do it. And I'm demanding that my loyal listeners, the Jason Nation, you put in the comments. Every time they bury who the source is, I want the Jason Nation to put in the comments, way to bury the source. Just put that, way to bury the source, and put the journalist's name, and then call them out on it. If we all call them out on it, they'll stop doing it. It's BS. I'm tired of it.
Well, Well, with Storyhunter, these publishers have the ability to finally make real news efficiently. We have project management. They can find freelancers. They can manage their projects on the platform.
There's no excuse anymore.
They can pay the journalists all on the platform. There's contract management. They don't need to worry about the expenses of having a foreign bureau. Any company, any media company that wants to launch...
Let me ask you a question. Has BuzzFeed, Huffington Post, or Business Insider use this platform?
We're in talks with all of them, and we'll see where it goes.
See, this is the thing. I know Henry Blodgett. I know Ariane Huffington and Tim Armstrong. I know a lot of the BuzzFeed cats. It's like time to do the right thing. You guys already made it. You did the we're gonna fake it till we'll make it strategy. Now you made it. Take your goddamn wallets out. You spent thousands of dollars on Facebook ads to tweak the damn headline, but you wouldn't spend a couple of $100 or give proper credit. Oh, I hate you all equally. I'm sorry. I'm in a bad mood today. You caught me on a bad day. But let me tell you something. Since we're on this tirade, these freelancers that you employ, they're lone wolves out there. There is nobody looking out for them. And then you wrote a great Medium piece. You mind if I talk about it?
Go ahead.
I mean, it's out there publicly.
Yeah, sure.
When a kidnapped journalist is a freelancer, is how this piece starts. You can pull it up. On September 16, 2013, journalist Javier Espinoza, is my pronouncing correctly? Mm-hmm. And Ricardo Garcia Villanova were traveling in northern Syria, along with 4 rebel soldiers they had hired for protection. At a checkpoint near the town of Tal Abad, armed, bearded men took their passports and whisked the group of 6 to a makeshift detention facility. 2 weeks later, the kidnappers released the 4 rebel soldiers, but not Javier and Ricardo. The soldiers told concerned colleagues and relatives that the journalists were in the hands of Islamic State of Iraq and Sham. Is that pronounced correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Sham?
Yep.
And ISIS, a particularly radical Islamic military once affiliated with Al-Qaeda. This story is so old, you had to explain what ISIS is. We now sadly know who these bastards are. In the eyes of the kidnappers in much of the world, Javier and Ricardo appear to be quite similar. Both are talented, experienced Spanish journalists. Both had reported from Syria before and were familiar with the risks of reporting from the country. There is one major difference, however, between the 2 men. Javier is a staff reporter. Ricardo, on the other hand, is a freelancer. It's a distinction that shouldn't really matter, but it actually does. I hated the actually. A dirty little secret of the news publishing business is that most of the pictures and videos we see on the front page of newspapers and magazines are taken by freelancers. The digital disruption of print news media has led a staggering number of cuts in journalism jobs, as we discussed here on the program. With limited resources, publishers' reliance on freelancers is at an all-time high. Working with freelancers has a huge economic advantage, especially in conflict zones, safety equipment, first aid, or hostile environment training. On occasion, some publishers do pay accommodations or expenses, but this is rare. Generally, they buy or license the content when they need it on an a la carte basis without any add-ons or advanced commitment. Publishers reap all of the rewards of working with freelancers but assume none of the risks. If something terrible happens at any point leading up to or following the transaction, the publisher bears no responsibility. If a camera gets stolen or broken, a plane is missed, or someone else gets to a story first, the freelancer absorbs the cost. If a freelancer gets hit by a bus or struck by a rocket, they're on their own. While some media companies do provide some form of insurance and safety equipment for freelancers, they are the exception rather than the rule. So what exactly happens when things go wrong for freelancers? The ongoing Syrian civil war has provided far too many examples. Take the case of Ali Mustafa, a Canadian freelance photographer. Ali's big break came in Cairo on August 14th, 2013, when he found himself holed up inside the Rabaa Mosque with his Nikon D9 camera. Nobody except an aspiring freelancer would have wanted to be there that day. Egyptian security forces raided the mosque, killing more than 500 civilians in cold blood. Ali witnessed the massacre from beginning to end. His photographs of bodies piled one on top of the other on the floor of the mosque caught the attention of SIPA and the European Press Photo Association, 2 prominent French photo agencies. They bought Ali's photos and offered him a freelance contract. He was elated. The following week, his camera was confiscated at an Egyptian army checkpoint. He returned to his native Toronto to save money for a new one. Back home, his closest friends said he had changed. His demeanor was more serious. He complained of insomnia, nightmares, and survivor's guilt. Sensing his desperation to get back to the Middle East, his friends initiated a fundraising campaign to buy him a plane ticket and replace the camera. Thanks to his friends, in early February, he was back in business with a sparkling new Nikon and on his way to Syria. Ali crossed the border from Turkey and had the good fortune of being the only Western journalist in Hadariya. Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
A rebel-controlled neighborhood of Aleppo. Did I get that right?
No, Aleppo.
Aleppo. Thanks to his exclusive access, he sold photos by the dozens to EPA and SIPA, which were splashed on the front pages of The Guardian and the Times of London. On March 9th, a government helicopter dropped a barrel bomb on a residential building. According to witnesses, Ali went into the destroyed building with some young activists to try to rescue survivors. Suddenly, the chopper swooped back around and dropped another bomb. Ali's luck had run out. At the age of 29, on his second professional reporting trip, he was killed alongside 7 Syrians. Nobody called Ali's family to notify them of his death. His sister found out through a photo uploaded by an activist on Facebook. His face was charred, but unmistakably his. Ali had no liability or life insurance when he was killed. I mean, it's just tragic.
And then what happens afterwards?
The Turkish and Qatar Red Crescents recovered the corpse, brought it back to Turkey. His mother, who runs a small cleaning service, paid the Canadian government $6,500 Canadian to coordinate his reparation, plus $8,000 for a flight and $7,000 for a funeral. When all is said and done, Ali's family was more than $20,000 in debt. The photo agencies, on the other hand, incurred zero costs. They did not offer the Mustafa family a single penny. They did not offer their condolences or even acknowledge Ali's death. Miraculously, Ali's camera had survived the blast and was sent home with his body. It was covered with his blood. The memory card was missing. Syria is the most dangerous place on earth right now as a journalist. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, more than 65 journalists have been killed since the conflict began. The vast majority are freelancers. Sometimes they get caught in the crossfire like Ali. Other times they are executed for no apparent reason. Yasser Fasil al-Jamaliya, an Iraqi freelance cameraman who worked for Reuters and Al Jazeera, among other outlets, was shot in the head by Idlib by ISIS thugs while on assignment for a Spanish media outlet. The company never publicly acknowledged a relationship with its freelancer for fear of reprisal. Yasser left behind a wife with 3 children and lots of bills to pay. It's not just foreign journalists who are under threat. As less professional Western journalists take the perilous journey into Syria, an increasing number of young and desperate Syrians are fleeing the void. Molhalam Barakat was trying to make ends meet in a defunct Syrian economy when he began selling photographs to Reuters in May of 2013. The wire service bought dozens of photos but provided no war zone training, protective gear, or insurance coverage. Molhalam, did I pronounce it correct? Mm-hmm. Was killed on December 20th, 2013 while covering a battle over an Aleppo hospital. His actual age at the time of his death has been difficult to confirm. He was either 17 or 18. I mean, this goes on and on. Yeah. And Reuters just doesn't give a shit, huh?
Well, I think Reuters was actually not involved in that one. Two other photo agencies.
They just don't care.
Yeah, because of that relationship where it's...
They couldn't be bothered to bring a body back for $20,000. These are multi-billion-dollar international organizations.
It's true.
And the people who they're putting on the cover of the homepage, they can't even be bothered to bring them home to their parents.
Yeah, and the cost of insurance is actually not that high. If you
$1,000 a person.
If you can, and it's even cheaper than that, if you can know when they start and when they finish. And that's what our technology does. It allows that. It allows them to. It defines the working relationship in the system, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts as to whether you're working for a publisher or not. And so if we're trying to change the game and change the way freelancers work, don't take an assignment to go to Syria unless you have a beginning and start and end date and insurance. It's not.
And we're talking about either low hundreds of dollars to get that insurance set up.
Yeah, it's not that much. So we offer that. It's built into the platform.
But they won't even give them the credit. I mean, it's one thing to not pay to bring the bodies back. That's abhorrent enough for Reuters or whoever. Mm-hmm. Was it Reuters who didn't bring the body back?
No, it was SIPA and EPA.
For them to not pay to bring the bodies back of their own photojournalists is abhorrent. They should be ashamed from the top of the organization to the bottom. especially the fellow photographers, how those fellow photographers are not on strike the very next day saying, we'll take not a single another frame for you unless you change this, is crazy.
Yeah.
But on top of that, to not even give the dead man his credit, to not even give him the dignity of credit is just insane. I mean, it's just insane. And you know what? You're the only person who's actually bringing it up. Is anybody else even bringing this up? I've never read about this. I don't even know about this, and it's made me infuriated.
Yeah, this is something that freelancers have been talking about amongst ourselves. We're so good at telling the stories of refugees and of civil rights abuses and of whatever is happening in the world. We have so much empathy for others that actually we never told the world about how we're being taken advantage of, and we were bad at telling our own story, really. And so hopefully we fix that.
So you have 6,000 people on the platform.
Yeah.
5 years from now, if you're successful, you raised $1 million for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming it's costing you $100,000 a month to run this organization, something like that? 50,
Not
100?
even.
Not
We're
even.
bootstrapped.
You're bootstrapped.
Yeah.
How many people do you need to get on this platform? How many clients do you need to get on this platform for you to have enough power for you to start to change these very important issues? Where do you need to get to?
Well, I think we already are changing these issues.
You are.
Clients love working on Storyhunter. It changes the game for them. It's
clients being
the media companies and the journalists. They love.
Tell me why the media companies love it.
For many reasons. They love it because A, they don't have to ever worry about finding a freelancer again. B, there's no project management system that they use in media companies. Everything is on email, on Excel. They don't know exactly where their projects are. They don't know when they started. They don't know what stage they're in. They can't look at another editor's assignments. Our software allows them, one editor, to look and see exactly what's happening all over the company. What is the state of each assignment? Who got paid, when they got paid, when this project was completed, contract management. So basically all the administrative stuff that was a huge headache for editors, we eliminate with the software. So they just have to focus on making great stories. And the same on the journalist side. It was a huge headache for me to know, okay, I have this project with the New York Times, I have this project with Time, but no dashboard for me to see what's going on. So Storyhunter is the work platform for journalists. It makes everything much more efficient.
It's your CMS, content management system, if you will. If you put in, let's say you happen to get that footage of a bomb going off, but you just took that because you happened to be out in the field that day, but you haven't sold it. Can you put it up there for auction? Can you put it up there and sell it to one person exclusively or multiple people at a multiple license rate based on their circulation?
Yes, you can. You can upload the idea and say, hey, I have this footage, and say, any media company can buy it, or you can go to specific media companies. But we recommend in that case to actually post it on the breaking news pitch feed, which is essentially any idea from the field can come into the platform and be seen by all these
Can we
clients.
see that? I'd love to see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you see that, is that open to the public, or is it only available to publishers who are registered?
Only to publishers that are registered for the enterprise tier of our
So if they're on the
software.
enterprise tier, there's a huge advantage here that they can see for free the high quality stuff.
Yeah.
When they take it off the market, can other outlets still see it and say, oh, the New York Times swooped in and took this exclusively for this period of time?
Well, if it's bought, and nobody else can buy it again.
So it comes off?
Yeah, it
Or
comes
does
off.
it stay on and say bought?
No, it comes off.
See, I think it should stay on with a watermark across it. New York Times got it. This way, it just burns the soul of the Times of London or whoever.
It's an interesting idea. The other cool thing is that you can filter it. So a lot of times you're like, I don't want to see all these ideas. So you can actually build your network on Storyhunter. So the New York Times can have their own freelance network on Storyhunter and say, okay, I only want to see pitches from the following folks, because if you let 6,000 people start pitching you, it becomes it can become a lot of undesirable stuff. Yeah. So you can filter it any way you wish, and actually the majority though is coming from the other side. The majority of our work we're seeing is coming from an actual assignment where we sometimes get 50, 100, 200 applications to that one assignment, and sometimes they're scaling content production on the platform.
Wow.
So they're able to say, I want to get ideas from all over the world on on a theme, and then they can select
What's
20.
an example of that? What's the example that was the most impressive of a theme that then people came to? We want to do something on the anniversary of 9/11, of Martin Luther King Day, of Christmas around the world, because that to me seems like what an amazing way to actually, like, if I just said to you right now, I just want a picture of people saying "Je suis Charlie," is that how I pronounce it? And just from around the world, in and giving a peace symbol, and making a mashup of just that. If I could get 100 people doing that for $10 per clip or $25 per clip, I could make that 100-person video for $2,500. If I put that on YouTube, do you realize that that would make more than $2,500? Like, I could see actually a production company like BuzzFeed, which has a huge, say Frank's running a big BuzzFeed thing over there. BuzzFeed would crush it doing that.
Yeah. You can look at us like an open platform for any type of content production you want to make, from 10 to 15-second Instagram videos, which we've done, to 15-minute.
So give me an example.
Or longer. So, we have a client who posted a view of cities all over the world. We want to see just a portrait of 20 major cities, and here's the amount we're paying, and they got inundated with stories in the beginning.
People may have had them already in their archive.
Yeah, they may have, or they're just going to say, okay, the price is right, I'm going to go ahead and
What would
make
they pay
this.
for something like that? Just a simple photo?
Well, it wasn't a photo, it was a video.
Okay,
it was
a simple video.
1 to 2 minute video. It was a $700 assignment.
Per city?
Yeah.
And how many cities do they want? 10?
They're going with 20, I believe.
So it's a $14,000 assignment.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you take 20%?
We take, so it ranges. The enterprise clients pay us more to subscribe to the platform per month, and then we lower the service fee to incentivize them to scale on the platform.
So they pay $50,000 a year to be on the platform or something?
More or less.
Yeah, it's $5,000 a month seems like the right price to me.
Yeah, and then plus the content. So
they get to browse for $5K a month or something, and then they get to buy selectively, and they pay less than whatever the split is. What does a photo agency take? If I'm a photographer for one of these photography agents, they
much
take half?
more than us. Yeah, much more than us.
About half?
Yeah, roughly.
And so you take half that, or?
We take much less. We don't take anything from the journalist, and so we're taking a small amount from the publisher.
Got it.
And making it.
So the journalist sells it for $700, and you just put a little fee on 20%, 30% for them to pay.
Less, actually. So for the basic users that are paying $99 a month, and we're targeting production companies, media companies, and they're loving it because they're able to just easily, use the same tool that these powerful tool that these enterprise users are using. So they're paying a little bit more because they're using us less. The people that are using us more, we charge them less in service
So if you're
fees.
using it less than once a month, $99, above 5 times a month, you pay the enterprise or something?
No, it's actually the tiers are a function of how many editors or how many seats are in the platform, as well as usage.
So sort of like LinkedIn, but for photojournalists.
Yeah.
And how many people work at the company now?
We're 8 people.
8 people?
Yeah, 4 tech, 4 sales.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So this is now turning into a real concern. Like it's an actual operating business that's not going to go away.
Oh, no, we're not. Yeah.
Very good. Which publication would we have seen most of the largest amount of your work in? In other words, which publication is the hippest and smartest and uses it the most?
Yeah, so AJ Plus is a new digital media company run by Al Jazeera.
Yeah.
And they've used us a lot, and basically have found that they don't need that many editors, and they can just leverage this network and make content very efficiently. So they're using us a tremendous amount, and have asked all of their freelancers to join the platform and just work through us because it's easier.
And AJ Plus, this is their app to get the consumer more involved. It's their own crowdfunding,
It's their
crowdsourcing kind of thing?
U.S. Media company, U.S.-based media, digital media company. Yeah.
Do people look at Al Jazeera in the United States at least, or how is Al Jazeera looked around the world? Because I know when people say Al Jazeera here, they immediately think, well, these are the guys who are the spokespeople for Al-Qaeda. Mm-hmm. And they always seem to have the Al-Qaeda videos first. They always seem to put the videos of the beheadings on first. They seem to be the spokesperson for ISIS, etc. Is that a bunch of bunk that's been fed to us by our government and other media associations, or are they a legitimate news operation that just happens to have close ties to these terrorist organizations? How do you view them? They're a client. I know it's hard for you to be objective, but you do hear this, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you hear all kinds of things. I mean, I think, when we started Storyhunter, we had a big strategic decision to make. Do we want to be a platform, or do we want to be a media company?
Right.
And we knew there were tons of media companies out there, a lot of competition. And ultimately, I was more excited by the idea of a platform because we feel that we can get more journalists working. That's always been our mission. Let's get more freelance journalists working. The way we do that is scale the number of media companies on the platform and not be a blocker if we don't agree necessarily with the political views of that media organization. We knew there's a possibility of media companies coming in that we might not agree with. However, the net of all the media companies working in the world on our platform will lead to a more truthful, more transparent world. And so, therefore, while I might have political views about Al Jazeera,
or Fox News,
or any MSNBC or anybody, ultimately we want to be a platform for them. And I think that they're going to go more into original news, original reporting, which leads to more truth, capital T, than a pundit sitting behind a desk.
For sure.
So hopefully, even if Fox might say, oh, here's a way for us to get more stories, and hopefully they'll shift their programming over to original stories rather than punditry.
Let me ask you a delicate question. Freelancers have been known to amp up the truth in order to sell a piece of content. I.e., I could set out an explosion to go up here in the studio, have somebody videotape it, and I could stage it. And it's now worth something. I could smear blood all over a body that's not actually a dead person and take video of it. How do you know that people aren't gaming the system and creating things that are not real and then selling them and just totally circumventing the truth, which is obviously the goal of journalism, in order to make money, which is the goal of basically everybody on the planet? How do you know? And how do you police it? Can you police it?
Well, how do you know that staff reporters aren't doing the same thing?
Yeah, exactly. How do you know? I mean, you have to rely on a whistleblower. You have to rely on, staying on top of Jason Blair or Stephen Glass or, pick the liar of the month in journalism.
So we've seen that in staffers as well. And and you mentioned a few examples.
What's the new guy? There's a new guy who was with this Mike. What's a company? Mike? MIC?
Policy.mic, yeah.
And the guy who's the editor lied in 30 stories plus. They found he had plagiarized. Woo.
Yeah, so I'm not going to comment on that, but what I can say is that I just don't know. I don't know enough.
Yeah, I don't know all the details. All I know is he resigned and was like, I apologize to all the other journalists who I embarrassed.
Yeah.
And I was like, you kind of embarrassed yourself, not the other journalists, but nice try on an apology.
Yeah, what I can say is that we do what we can to ensure ethical behavior on the platform with a rigorous ethical code. We also have a review system.
Code's just words.
Sure, but the review system, I believe, is the ultimate arbiter of
how does it work?
Of enforcement, because a journalist that is building their reputation on Storyhunter, which is what we hope they're going to be doing, knows that if they lie, cheat, or steal, they're going to be basically out of work. They're never going to be able to work as a freelancer again.
So there's a high cost.
Yes. Yeah.
But how does the vetting process work? How does somebody get on the platform? You just accept anybody? Or do you have to have clips already? Do you have to have references? How does the onboarding work? Because that does seem to be the place where if you're going to catch somebody, onboarding would be a good place. Have to give you references? How does that work?
They need a minimum of 3 professional clips for us to review them. And then we have a semi-automated, semi-manual process for reviewing that's been so far so good. And we let in about 50% of the applicants.
So there's a discerning thing going on here. If you've never done journalism before, this is not your starting point. Go get a couple of clips at your local newspaper or whatever outlet you can get to hire you, then come with your clips.
Correct. Yeah. We're not a citizen journalism platform. There are many of those out there. So
have any of those citizen journalism platforms ever worked?
Well, I see YouTube as a citizen journalism platform.
Well, that certainly worked, but it's not like Korea. What about like Oh My News, and like we hear about that in Korea all the time?
Yeah, I mean it's.
And everybody thought Oh My News was going to be in every country. It hasn't. Why not?
Well, I think curation is very difficult when you have thousands and thousands and thousands of terabytes of data coming in. How do you find that one that's actually valuable? And the cost of hosting all that is very high. So it just seems like a business that is difficult to make work in a big level. But I mean, news companies are great at finding those gems on Twitter and on YouTube. When they happen, the crowd just pushes them up and says, "Oh, this is important because it's it's got hundreds of thousands of views," and then they say, "Okay, we're gonna pick this up for our broadcast." But I don't think it's hard to make it a predictive model and make it work.
What did I miss today? I feel like I got pretty deep into this, but I must have missed something. Is there something coming that we don't know about that you're doing that's going to just wow the hell out of us? Tell us.
Well,
Give us a look down the roadmap.
I think the technology should be emphasized more, and in that we're doing something here that newsrooms have never been able to innovate properly because they're so worried about doing what they do best, which is finding the story.
They got work to do.
Yeah, and so building this open platform for media companies was also, it would be too competitive. So building this open platform is something that would innately be something that a media company would want to acquire for themselves and not be something that they would share.
It's not in their best interest to share it.
Right. So that's what excites me the most most that we can actually empower all media companies and start working together, start having data on journalists and helping your competitors actually do their work better. And it hopefully will change the ethos behind journalism in a major way.
Let me ask you a question. Let's say Inside, Circa, and Nuzzle, and 5 other small news apps said, you know what, we're aggregators, which we are. We don't do original reporting. We said, we want to do a little bit of original reporting. We're going to get together with these 9 other apps. We're going to create one account called, New News Corp. And we're each going to put $1,000 in a month. We have $10,000. We're going to spend it. And we're going to share that across our 10 apps. And we're going to get what we would never be able to afford ourselves on some exclusive basis. $10,000, $300 a day. We're going to get some exclusive clip that we all have that nobody else has. Would that be allowed, and is that discouraged? Does the New York Times say, you know what, we don't care about Der Spiegel and we don't care about Le Monde, so Le Monde, Der Spiegel, and the New York Times are going to put an assignment out there to cover X, Y, and Z. We're each going to put 10K in and get something that nobody else has in 4K, but one's going to be in German, one's going to be in French, and one's going to be in English. And, c'est la vie, vive la différence, as it were. Have they done that, or they just don't get it?
We haven't seen media companies band together yet to start commissioning, but we would be okay with it as long as you're a legitimate media company or a collection of media companies and you're paying fairly. Absolutely, you can come onto the platform and make original content on Storyhunter.
This is the killer feature for you. Mm-hmm. What you should do is you should say, I want the English language version of this, and I'm willing to share it with the Germans, the French, the Swedish, the Spanish, the Japanese, the Koreans, and the Chinese. Pick 10 languages. I email the people I want to work with and say, hey, for $20,000, we can send somebody to be on the ground for 20 days. Who wants to split it with us? And then we each get the videos. We each have exclusive for this territory. Then what would seem impossible, it's almost like a pop-up AP News. This could be the killer feature.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I think that what's happening though in media is that media companies are becoming more and more niche, and the ones that become more niche and find that audience are becoming more successful and are able to afford original content creation. So it's one of these things where it's hard to find the commonality between media companies who want to differentiate their brand.
Fair enough, but there's a tech pub in there's an automotive and a technology pub and a women's magazine in every market.
Mm-hmm. But the women's magazines want to compete with the other women's magazines, so why are they going to band together?
Well, because they don't have one in Japan.
Gotcha.
I'm saying just geography-wise.
Yeah.
I know Engadget, Gizmodo, and TechCrunch and whatever, Mashable are not going to all send the same reporter to the Apple iWatch launch. But you could be sure that if I was a stringer at the Apple iWatch and I made a video and sent it to France, sent it to Japan, sent it to China, and Germany, hey, they got exclusive. And this is where it could get really interesting. Imagine you had a host who was trilingual. What would you call somebody who speaks 4 languages? Quadlingual? It's just somebody who speaks 4 languages.
Polyglot.
Glot. Yeah, you said you get one of these polyglots. You know what I'm saying? Producer Jackie, you're a polyglot, right? You speak like him.
We got a lot of them in the office.
Do you really?
Yeah.
So you find some polyglot and you're like, hey, just do a stand-up that you're here from the watch thing and say 5 things in French, say 5 things in Japanese, say 5 things in Chinese, make it whatever. Or do it in the home office where the person says the first thing and then the other. Oh my God, would that be juicy? And it'd be great for the freelancer because then you have one photographer. It's also great for the footprint of the earth because if there was a more efficient journalistic enterprise, you wouldn't need to send 600 journalists to cover the iWatch. You could send 50, and the other 550 could cover something else important in the world. It's tremendous waste, isn't it?
Yep.
We send 1,000 people to the Super Bowl to cover nonsense.
That's right.
You can send 50 and be done with it.
It's true. It's true.
I really love what you're doing. Who are you? Where did you come from? And just as I close here, I mean, I know you were a stringer and you did all this stuff in the field, but what is your background before that? Because I have to say, there's very few people I meet in the news business who I think get it and who actually understand the future. I think you're one of the few. Where did you come from?
I came from, it's a long story, but I was
Well, give me the brief version.
I was born in Canada, and my parents are from South Africa. And I grew up in Miami in a Latino neighborhood and spent part of my childhood in Israel and part of my childhood in South Africa. And I think got to travel a lot as a kid and then continued traveling in my 20s and really just realized that the world is a very interesting place. And there's lots of stories out there and things out there that you and I have no clue about. We read the paper and we're just limited by this information that we can get in this paper. So I imagine us like fish in a fishbowl, and then there's this whole ocean out there that we have no access to. So my personal mission when I got into journalism was I want to bring these stories back. And that's why I went to North Korea. That's why I went to Gaza. These places intrigued me because I really just wanted to know what's going on behind this curtain. And I just have this innate curiosity. And so Storyhunter is a manifestation of me, in a way, on a systematic level. Let's empower all of these people to go out there and, I imagine, decentralized nodes who are not capable of being censored, who are not capable of being controlled, and media companies can just access them and use them and to all of our benefit. So we are all more informed, and the world will become a better place, hopefully. And I'm also just really interested in technology. I've always been interested in video cameras and. You
got anybody using Oculus Rift type stuff yet in the field?
In the field, no. The cameras are too expensive, but I think that...
Where do those cameras go for, like $30,000 a rig?
I'm not sure, but...
You have to put 5 cameras, 6 cameras together to do it.
I think they could be an amazing tool for journalists.
I'm going to put you together with a friend of mine named Chris Dixon over at Andreessen Horowitz. Can my chief of staff make a note, or producer Jackie make a note that I'd like to get that connection going? Chris was the guy behind, one of the investors behind Oculus Rift, and obviously Zuckerberg owns it right now. Mm-hmm. I think they should give you $1 million grant, like $100,000 a month, to literally go out there and just shoot stuff, but make it public domain.
That would be amazing.
And then let anybody just fuck with it. I cursed twice during the show. Can we bleep that out? I'm sorry. I'm a little bit tired, and I got this hangover from this pain medication. Listen, great job. And the public can't really participate. They can't really see this stuff. I think that's one of the failings of the product as it stands right now. What I think you should do is I think you should have like a /live version and allow the person contributing to check off /live if they want to and put a low-res, non-HD version of whatever they make out there, or an image with a big-ass watermark on it. Just way those news crazy people can just look at it and vote it up and down and maybe tweet it. Because a tweet of a photo with a huge watermark on it, or a tweet of, a 10-second video with a huge watermark on it, is better than nothing, and I don't think it devalues it. What do you think of that idea?
It's an interesting idea. It's one that we think about sometimes, but at the end of the day, we know that the best content is going to get out in the form of
so you don't need
of a broadcast. It's going to go to a media
What
company.
about putting a live page there and showing a very low-res version and then putting next to it who got it?
Yeah,
It's almost like for inside baseball that I could because there's 1% of the audience who's a junkie who would love to keep this bookmarked like me, and I would love to see who actually picks it up.
Yeah,
what they did with it to me is kind of cool. It's almost like a chef being able to see where did this cheese come from, where did these vegetables come from, who sourced this salmon. Okay, this is salmon that came from Alaska. And then I got to see, God, this is how Tavern made it in New York, Gramercy Tavern, It's almost like threading the needle for me of the source and the dish.
Yeah, our CTO is actually he was an Alaskan salmon fisherman.
No, I brought it up for him.
I agree with you. I think that the problem is that a lot of our enterprise users don't want their content being seen anywhere else except for their...
they don't want people to know their source.
Well, in some cases they don't.
Yeah.
And in some cases
they're trying to keep up the illusion that they did this themselves without any help.
Yeah, and we don't mind. We're happy to power the operations and be the arms dealer.
Jaron Gilinsky, I am truly impressed. And when I say I'm truly impressed, know that I see everything. So for me to be truly impressed by something in journalism means like you beat out 99 things that I think are just absolutely pedantic and boring and loathsome. You're doing something that's truly impressive with Storyhunter, and I want everybody to take a look at storyhunter.tv. And if you're one of those journalists who, who's making great stuff, sign up. And if you're one of those publications that's kind of like a leech, like Henry Insider's Business Insider, who's a friend of mine, but like Henry, come on, you're leeching a bunch. You know that. Business Insider, you're leeching a bunch. Huffington Post, you're leeching a bunch. You guys are printing money. Spend the 50 dimes a year, spend 10 dimes a year on the platform, and just up your game. Right?
Couldn't agree more.
Would it kill them?
And
this whole thing with who gets the source, put it in the damn... I'm going to start this is going to be my new thing. Producer Jackie, remind me to write a blog post since I'm back from my haze of pulling my back and I owe a couple blog posts. Can you remind me to just write a blog post calling out publications that suck? Thank you, Producer Jackie. Some people just suck at giving credit. You know what? I'm in such a good position because I don't need their press or anything like that. I can just call them out, make them look really stupid. Can't wait to do that. I'll do that. That's going to be my job. That's fun for the weekend for me. Thank you to our amazing sponsors. WeWork, thank you for the studio. It's amazing. My Chief of Staff, Bryce, of course, thank you. Jackie and Jacob on the ones and the twos, making the program flawless. Luke, Matt, and Julian for ringing the cash register and doing the sits. We have sales sits here. We sit, we sell. John on the ticker, great job. Let's step it up a notch, though. I'm watching you, John. Step it up a notch. And Adam, Andrew, Chad, my incredible designer on Inside, Blake, my incredible developer, Chris. God, everybody doing a great job over at Inside. Whew. And people like it. We may have an outcome. And the show is TWI Startups on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And I am, of course, at Jason, and I will see you next time on This Week in Startups. Bye-bye.